Bum, 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 bum. Let's go. Got my eye drops. That's why I like to tape the floor with the camera, folks. Little trick. Tape the floor where the tripod's supposed to go. This way you know for sure where perfectly it is. Media pollsters suck. So do universities. Little money from USAID goes a long way. Speaking of which, got a great clip. All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. I am feeling better than I felt in days. Not perfect, but better. All right. Look, don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide, of course. And the best place, as always, to follow us is on Locals. It's right there on your screen, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. As of right now, the book club is a go. Don't forget, the book is Nations and Identities. It is 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. All right. The story of the day here, it is Freewheeling Friday. So, I'll do my best to get to a bunch of your questions, and I think I have to get the kid, but I will ask Laura. I got a clip I want to start off with before we get into the crux of the day. And the crux of the day is very simple. Our propaganda pollsters, which we have to now accept we have in this country. It's no better than Narcos Mexico. Have you guys ever seen that? Go watch it on Netflix if you've never seen it. One of the key points in the operation for the ruling class government who was going to lose a free and fair election. One of the keys in their plan, it was absolutely crucial to set up public expectation. And one of the keys, of course, was fake polls, propaganda polls. And so many people, especially in the Trump era, have discussed this concept of propaganda polls. And I have been ask anybody who's watched me speak at a speaking event, or, you guys, if you've watched this show, I have always been very careful with that idea because I really did believe that this is probably a two-pronged problem. One is it's a methodological problem. All right. Polling is an art. It is not all science. There's no doubt about it. But also, we're in a changing world, and there are changing ways to reach people. And if you've watched me a while, you've heard this. Different groups respond to different modes of collection at different rates, which really throws a wrench in the principles of randomization. That's just the world we live in. However, we have, and then the second, of course, I did always say was ethical, which was that some of it's confirmation bias and some various forms of biases. And then also we got into what is essentially a social bias on behalf of the pollster, a pressure. Nate Cohen is a perfect example of that going into this last election. He knew, of course, that Harris was going to lose. He could look through the data and see what what he was finding. And even with a Republican response bias, he still could see that Trump was much, much, much stronger than he was in 2020. And that even if he fudged the numbers a little bit, he could barely give Harris a lead. And of course, he was wrong almost everywhere. The map was totally upside down, the one he put out in the New York Times. He was wrong, but he was trying to save his job. He was trying to operate in that world. He was throwing that world, his world, right? Copium, a little nugget, a little bit of hope, even though he wrote an article saying, I think you need to, in so many words, I think you need to prepare for the very real possibility that Donald Trump wins on Tuesday. And he did win on Tuesday. So even in the world we live in, he won so decisively that we knew by 9:45 Eastern Standard Time, at least I did. I wasn't willing to like blurt it out until much, a little, not much later, a little bit later, 10:30, 11 o'clock. It was obvious he was going to win. But that's a remarkable feat in this election environment where we have to wait for so many ballots to come in. Okay. But again, going back to the central point, I've always resisted just outright saying that we do, in fact, have propaganda polls in this country, propaganda people who are pollsters who are paid or whatever to put out bullshit. And now we know from USAID at the very least and other payments from the Treasury that pollsters themselves, the organizations themselves, and of course, media organizations who are known to be propagandists and who then hire these, what we used to call repeat offenders, right? And these repeat offenders, election in and election out, would put out polls that were junk. And after a while, it's hard to continue to argue that there's an ethical and methodological problem if it is so very obvious what's going on over many cycles that they don't change it. So between that and the paper trail, the money, we all now, including me, have to come to grips with the fact that there are propaganda pollsters in the United States of America, outright full of garbage. She came in on me. I saw her in the corner of my eye. You need me for something? Yeah, it's my tea. Thank you so much. She came in to see if I needed my herbal tea. She's keeping me alive, this one. I'm telling you, she is. I'm telling you. I would have worked myself to death by now. No human body is supposed to take the abuse that I put mine through in all measures. Like when I go in a workout binges, I do stupid stuff. When I go into workaholic, which I'm in 90% of my life, I am the worst workaholic, which is why when I used to drink, I was the worst. I wasn't an alcoholic. That was not my addiction of choice. Probably not. Unfortunately, none is better than the other. You know what I mean? But yeah, I do everything to the extreme. Just keeping me alive. And by the way, polling accurately to the extreme. It's a crucial function in a self-governing society. And if you want to be a propagandist pollster, like I was talking about with Narcos Mexico, you will see it very clearly. In order to steal an election, in order to wage a coup, which is effectively what they did, it is crucial that they put out polls that are propaganda because they need to set expectations. All right, so they're not new. This isn't novel. It's novel to the United States of America, or at least so blatantly we can see it. And we're going to talk about that today because I got to tell you guys, this is like a very short answer. I put, the name is propaganda, pollsters, fudging Trump's approval. They're fudging everything. That's the short answer. Yes. The short answer is yes. I've spoken to just about every pollster who did a decent job this election cycle and has a track record of doing it, and asked to compare what they found. Mark and I speak frequently. I can see what he's doing. I can see, I can, the difference between like Mark, me, and others is like, if Mark was to call me and say, hey, can I see your raw data set? I'm going to give it to him. Sure, Mark. And why? Because I know that he is legitimately going to look at that data set, see what I'm doing, how I'm interpreting it, and if I'm seeing the same things he's seeing, not to figure out how he can also skew his crap, which is what they're doing, because I can see patterns of behavior in the media polls, which I'm going to show you in a second. It's not just that. we are trying to do a decent job. We're constantly checking ourselves. All right. And this is now not only multiple elections that they've blown, this is the third presidential race in a row that they not only missed, but they missed significantly. All the while attacking, besmirching, and smearing the reputations and the names and the body of work of those who do a better job. And that's the thing, though. Haters are going to hate, but then am I supposed to sit here quietly and pretend that Marquette is just screwing up? They're not just screwing up. They're doing it on purpose. Am I supposed to sit here and pretend that the YouGov poll for The Economist is just screwing up? They're doing it on purpose. And I'm actually going to show you. And YouGov's a great example because I know exactly where they get their responses from. Because YouGov grew too fast for their own britches and now has to buy responses from my marketplace. So I know exactly where they're getting their responses from. And I know exactly what those panels are returning with education, gender, party, ideology, income, you name it. And there is only one way that they could arrive at the weighted and unweighted samples that they're arriving at. And this is no complete dig on YouGov because I want to reiterate how it works. YouGov gives the data set to their client. And while they're there for consulting and they do quotas, they are not 100% responsible for the end product. That's how YouGov can give Yahoo News and The Economist the same data set collected over the same period. We can see it. They're overlapping fielding days. But yet they'll get a different result. Because the Economist typically wants to see a more left-wing friendly result. Yahoo News also does, but not as much. So even though they have the same data set, they arrive at two very different weighted conclusions. Hold that thought. All right, after RFK, which we spoke about yesterday, after RFK was sworn in, this was earlier, he gave a speech in the Oval Office, which I think is absolutely worth playing. If you have watched it, bear with me, please. I think that not only is it a historic moment, or not only is he talking about the historic moment we're living in, but in fact, that moment in the Oval Office, I think, is historic. It's as historic as when he appeared with Donald Trump on the stage after endorsing him, after he dropped out of running as an independent. And he gives some insight. This is what, and I'd not known Robert Kennedy personally, but my first interaction with Robert Kennedy was when I was an editor for data journalism, and they were checking numbers that Kennedy was giving them on a place called Hannah Island. Okay. It is off of Long Island. It's like in Long Island. And basically there's a bunch of trash there, which is bringing all these mosquitoes and bugs. And it's not just he went at it from an alarmist green nutcase approach. It was like true environmental activism where he was looking out for the sound. Okay. And I had to double check some stuff. And I just found that him to be earnest. Okay. So it doesn't surprise me that without President Trump's permission, he would go to the microphone, make a speech, and then even say things that at first glance don't sound like they're risky. They're risky to say because the media is going to try to twist it. But when the voters see it in its totality, or even in a soundbite that's 45 seconds long and it's in context, they see something I think is special there. I really do. And I think it's easy for voters to connect with it. And I think they are connecting with it. All right. Marquette poll be damned. By the way, Marquette, who won the state of Wisconsin again? What was your national poll again? You suck. You're not a gold standard. You suck. Play clip 1.
And by thanking President Trump for giving me this extraordinary opportunity. And I want to introduce my family and thank them for being here. My wife, Cheryl, my cousin, Anthony Shriver, my daughter, Kik, my other daughter, Kira, Catalina Shriver, Joey Shriver, Jackson Hines, and Amaryllis Kennedy. And I want to thank all of you for your support and throughout this whole 2.5-year journey. My first time in this Oval Office was in 1961, and I came here to meet or 1962. I came here and I had a meeting with my uncle, who was president then, where we talked about the environment. He was involved deeply, as we all know, in restoring physical fitness in this country. He challenged at one point during his administration, he challenged Americans to do a 50-mile walk, which I ultimately did. But I remember the day that my father completed his walk. We were staying up at Camp David. And my father came in after 18 hours walking on the C&O towpath with his feet bleeding and blisters on them. My father had one of his best friends was Al Lowenstein. And Al Lowenstein ultimately was a congressman from New York who was assassinated himself in 1980. But Al Lowenstein had started the Dump Johnson movement to get rid of President Johnson and end the Vietnam War. And at the time that he started it, people just thought it was a fool's errand. And ultimately, he asked my father to run for president against Johnson. My father wouldn't do it at that time. And he asked Gene McCarthy. McCarthy did it, and he joined that campaign. And my father ultimately ran, and Johnson then dropped out. So Al Lowenstein succeeded. And although Al Lowenstein was on the other side now, running against my father with Gene McCarthy, my father wrote him a note, a quote from Emerson, where he said, "If a single man plant himself firmly on his own ideal and there abide, the whole wide world will come round to him." For 20 years, I've gotten up every morning on my knees and prayed that God would put me in a position where I can end the childhood chronic disease epidemic in this country. On August 23rd of last year, God sent me President Trump. And he gave me he's now given me, he's kept every promise that he's made to me. He's kept his word in every account and gone way beyond it. I'm so grateful to you, Mr. President. A lot of people told me that I couldn't trust President Trump, that I better get it in writing. And we did a handshake, and everything that he told me he was going to do, he has done. And I'm so grateful to him, and I've told you before, I genuinely believe that you are a pivotal historical figure, and you are going to transform this country at a time when we see all of the indicia of democracy now in tatters in our country. We see the rise of the military-industrial complex, the rise of totalitarianism, these attacks on our Constitution, and this breathtaking epidemic that is disabling our people. President Trump has promised to restore the American dream in this country. A healthy person has 1,000 dreams. A sick person only has one. 60% of our population has only one dream, that they get better. President Trump has promised that he's going to restore America's strength. But we can't be a strong nation if we have a weak citizenry. If people are sick, 60% of our people are sick, 77%, as President Trump mentioned, of our children cannot qualify for military service. And we need a man on a white horse now. We need somebody who is willing to come in and has the spine and the guts and the strength to challenge orthodoxies, to stand in the way of vested interests, and to break institutions that have turned against our democracy. President Trump has shown again and again that he is that hero. And most recently, I greatly appreciate it, and I called you the day that you announced the termination of USAID. My uncle started USAID in 1961 for humanitarian purposes, to put our country on the side of the poor. It has been captured by the military-industrial complex. It has become a sinister propagator of totalitarianism and war across the globe. And very few people understand how sinister this agency really is. And President Trump saw that, and he stood up to it with a masterstroke. And we want to do the same thing with the institutions that are stealing the health of our children. We need a revolutionary figure, and you are that figure, and I'm very grateful for you for giving me this opportunity. I want to recognize some of the allies that I've had in this.
We really don't need that. That's he's recognizing part of his family who actually stuck with him, which, of course, if you know anything about his little journey as running for president, his own family think about this, and we talked about this in one episode. You sell out your own family to make sure that you keep your invites to the ruling class's tea and crumpets, gatherings, even though they serve a vehicle that executed one of your family members, all right, or two of your family members, even though Sirhan is a different story. He brings somebody like Mark Rivera on, and he'll spin a fact pattern for you that will make you think otherwise, believe me, because after 30 years of not seeing it that way, he was incredibly convincing to me. But in any event, there's more direct, obviously, when it comes to his uncle. And yet, when he was running for president, they disavowed him in an attempt to keep in the good graces of Biden and the Democratic Party and the social culture that surrounds the Democratic Party and the ruling class, right? So, yeah, he had brought that up, and he said, we need a revolution. We need to stop these organizations that are especially hurting the health of our children. And in fact, about 8 minutes ago, Donald Trump just signed an executive order. We'll get the footage. We have it, actually. I just not going to load it up right now. He signed an executive order banning any federal funds to schools who mandate that your child get the COVID vaccine. Folks, as a parent, one of the biggest concerns for me, especially as a researcher who early on identified, and clearly exposed a link, which now others have studied, a link between severe adverse effects and age, with it obviously being a negative link for those who are younger. It is, and I'm sorry if you did listen to others, but for the vast overwhelming majority of kids, it makes no sense to get vaccinated for COVID when you have basically zero risk, unless you have some kind of condition that puts you at risk anyway. You have zero risk from COVID when you haven't had an unknown and what appeared to be in the research growing risk to getting the COVID-19 vaccine. And now this is known science. Obviously, it was not back then. So Donald Trump did that, and that is a hugely popular issue. We have polled it over and over and over again. The public does not believe that public schools or private schools should mandate that children get the COVID vaccine in order to attend their studies, all right, or their facilities. So, all right, with that in mind, let's get back to the thing at hand here. I'm going to play one clip from JD, which is kind of a funny clip, but it lands on what propaganda polls are really seeking to do. All right, so what's the point? Is it just to set up elections, to raise money, right? Whatever their motives are, the effect of it is very dangerous, because you are effectively suppressing the views of people who are supposed to be sovereign and represented by their government. And when you do that, you're asking for a powder keg to explode in your face. No government can sustain that. And JD brings up essentially what effectively this is a small part of an overall theme that the ruling class has been living by and governing by in the Western world now for decades.
And expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
Of course, they didn't find
But
that
what
funny.
German democracy, what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered.
Now, there it is. And now I'm going to say something deeply, deeply unpopular. That joke did not land in that audience. That, of course, is the Munich Security Conference. All right. Germany plays a critical role in the non-US Western world and the ruling class that governs it. All right. I find it and have always found it deeply disturbing, but also ironic that the people who constantly call others Hitler, all right, and are warning about fascists are in fact fascists and those who brought us Hitler. Okay. Or they look at those who brought us Hitler as like a model example or something. It's unbelievably ironic to me that it has always been like that. And or because, of course, the other nation second to Germany in this little order is France, right? Where's the OECD, right? And so many others. Of course, it's Paris-based, as so many others are. This is also a nation that basically brought us one of the largest fascist and Hitler sympathies, Nazi sympathies in Europe during World War II. I mean, it's just unbelievably ironic to me. But what JD is worrying about is, you're pulling this crap with Elon Musk, and we all know what you're doing. It's your latest attempt to subvert the will of the voter and the administration that the voter chose to be their sovereign. Okay. And you can go on and on about Elon Musk. We all know what you're up to, what you're doing, and you cannot stop people forever from getting what they want. You can't come up with a new scam. You can't come up with a new coup. You can't come up with a new hoax, right? You can't keep doing this. Your system, your model is unsustainable. All right. And in the United States of America, we are clearly at the end of our rope, right? I shudder to think what would have happened had Donald Trump not won this election. It terrifies me, or the prospect of more than half of the country deciding this system is no longer a plausible or feasible vehicle to use to get remedy or affect change. That terrifies me because that's the end of the order. That's called the breaking of the social contract, the dissolution of the social contract. And that leads to awful things. All right. And part of this effort to deny people what they want is propaganda polling. It is. I want to show you something real quick. All right. Here is the Economist YouGov poll. It doesn't matter at this point, weighted versus unweighted. They're both equally bad. All right. Let's look at the unweighted. All right. Here we can see, according to them anyway, that out of their sample size, which is 1,595, they claim without leaning that Democrats represent 571 of those responses. That, for people who can't do it in their head, it is not, don't feel bad if you can't. That is 35.79 or 35.8 rounded or rounded up to 36. Okay. For Republicans, 458 of those responses in this sample represent those who self-identified as Republicans. All right. For those, again, who cannot do the math, that is 27.8 or 28% rounded up. So YouGov wants you to believe that they have a Democratic advantage of 8 points in this sample. Folks, before you even wait, which is absurd to have anything as a final product that's D plus 8. The fact that they even got an unweighted result that was D plus 8 in this environment tells you that they did one thing, because these are all panel responses. YouGov is an online panel, and YouGov buys from a marketplace that is owned by Cint. All right. Cint or Lucid Holdings, but Cint bought Lucid Holdings. So if you were to just, without hardly any quotas, maybe you want to make sure that gender is 53% female, the sex. Sorry, I told you it's going to take me a while to adjust. You want to make sure that you have a quota for sex that's 53% female, 47% male. Maybe you want to make sure you add age quotas. All right. Maybe that's it. National poll, you maybe do bare minimum, and you do region, the Northeast. It should be no more than 19%. More likely, it should be 17 or 18. All right. But they do. I see pollsters do this all the time. Why? So they can buttress, they can beef up or overrepresent the liberal Northeast, especially liberal New England. Because the Mid-Atlantic is part of the new Northeast, but it is not that liberal anymore. All right. And maybe that's it. That's it. At this point, that marketplace is routinely returning with those basic quotas anywhere between R plus 2 to D plus 1. Sometimes we did once get an R plus 6, which to us was like, whoa. If you add more detailed quotas and you do it by census division, and I'm telling you this and explaining this I'm explaining this to you because this is how it is done in every marketplace. You will never get a D plus 6 or 8 sample. Never. You could end up with an even higher share. Maybe you end up with D plus 1 or D plus 2. But in this environment, you are likely to end up with something more modest for Republicans, R plus 2 to R plus 4. If you don't use any regional quotas, then it can all go haywire, and it really isn't even worth explaining to you what we have seen because the range is ridiculous. You need regional at least. We go even more granular than that, but you do need regional at least. The only way that you can get D plus 6 or D plus 8 is if you do a few things. Overstate those regional definitions, or overrepresent the more liberal regional definitions. In other words, the Northeast, particularly New England, and the West. The Midwest and the South right now are very Republican. The Midwest used to be anywhere between even R plus 2, maybe D plus 2 on a good Democratic time, D plus 4 if you're very lucky. We just haven't seen those numbers in the Midwest in a very long time. And there's a reason for that. There is no registration trend anywhere over the last decade. If you were to do 16 to 20, you can cherry pick some areas of the country where registration trends, and even some states specifically, like Arizona and Georgia, where registration looked good for Democrats. That was a temporary blip in the long-term trend, and it is back now to swinging incredibly hard to Republicans. Now, why does that matter? Affiliation and registration are linked, they have a relationship, but they are not the same thing. Affiliation is fluid. It is when somebody tells you what they identify as. We have put this up on Locals. If you're a member of Locals, you have seen this, you know this. We specifically even isolated Utah because of so many of the different third party, like the United in Utah, right? And others, the Constitutional Party, they have significant registration numbers. But when you poll people, many of them will tell you from these third parties, they are in fact Republican. Now, when we see long-term trends, registration, which is static, not fluid, is a lagging indicator. In other words, if we see an increase in Republican identification over a mid to long-term period, you can rest assured that a cycle or two later, you're going to see those registration trends follow. Think North Carolina, think Florida, think Pennsylvania. All great examples. Pennsylvania going back to when Donald Trump won the state of Pennsylvania, okay, against Hillary Clinton in 2016. It was only D+3 when you asked people, what do you identify as? And that's because a shit ton of registered Democrats would call themselves either independents or Republican. But they didn't change their registration until years later, in many cases, many years. Florida, the same thing. When Barack Obama won the state of Florida the first time, he had a registration advantage of over 800,000 registrations. Hillary Clinton, by the way, she had an almost 10% Democratic advantage over Donald Trump in registration. But that's not what the electorate would tell you, and did tell pollsters, exit pollsters, pre-election pollsters, what they were. By the time he went on to face Mitt Romney again, Mitt Romney, the trend was there, and Barack Obama barely won the state because he didn't have the pool of eligible registered voters to get out the vote with. It was no longer over 800,000. It was roughly about 560,000, if I remember correctly. Let's call it 5. By the time Donald Trump ran against Hillary Clinton in 2016, Florida was only D+320,000 ballpark. When he ran again against Joe Biden, Republicans in the last month had eked out a registration advantage for the first time since partisan affiliation was tracked in Florida since 1972 when they established it. However, you could clearly see in party identification that many of those white Southern Democrats, especially older ones, had not changed their registration. And in fact, at the state level, would still routinely vote for Democrats like Bill Nelson. But at the presidential and often senatorial, but definitely gubernatorial, they voted Republican, and they would tell you they were a Republican. North Carolina, same thing. You will see the trend in identification before registration picks it up. Pennsylvania, same thing. I mean, we can go all over the place. You would see it in Michigan. You would see it in Wisconsin if they had partisanship tracking by registration. They do not. Neither does Virginia. So, unfortunately, we cannot use those. But the examples are very clear. Somehow, national polling, and true of state level polling, but we're looking at a national poll right now. Somehow, national polling routinely comes out with these D+6 to 8 samples, sometimes even worse, Marist, even though registration trends, which are lagging indicators, have significantly moved against Democrats in the Trump era and longer. Folks, when Ronald Reagan beat Jimmy Carter, he had to win 20% of Democrats to do it in that kind of a fashion. Democrats grossly outnumbered Republicans. That is no longer the case. There is no universe where registered voter population or even adult citizens are D+8. And here's the kicker. The adult population is more Republican than the registered voter population. That's right. For the first time in my career, for the first time that I have ever heard of, the higher the turnout, the better for Republicans, because that means they got low propensity or no propensity voters off their ass to vote, and that's going to benefit them. Midterm elections used to favor Republicans because the registered voter population was much more Republican than the adult population. The likely voter population was even more Republican than the registered voter population. That's all backward now. The likely voter is typically more Democratic because they have slid so badly in identification and registration. There are very few isolated areas around the country where you cannot see Donald Trump doing better in 24 than in 2020. Presidential vote, of course, is much more rigid when it comes to partisanship and the PVI. Down ballot, partisanship weakens. The partisan voting index weakens, especially when we're talking about local elections and gubernatorial elections. It's a side note. You know that. I've been over this a million times. So my point to you is this. There is no world, there is no universe where I could go to this marketplace that I know they get these responses from, and even with very light footprint quotas, there is no universe where I will get a D+8 sample in return. Not happening. They fudge the shit out of their quotas to be able to get that Democrat advantage. Sorry, Laura. Apology, Laura. There is no other explanation. None. Zero. Zero. And in the case of Marquette, they're being cute. It's an R+5 sample and Trump's got a disapproval, or an R+4. I mean, it's ludicrous. They have a very bad habit of adding students to the working class, adding students to the non-college grad, packing students who are getting a degree into it. They do all sorts of cute little things. No universe. Trump's disapproval in our polling barely bumps above 45, 46%. The only way to do it, because I see exactly what Mark sees, relatively high approval among Democrats. Has it come down since his honeymoon +18 approval? Yes. But it looks like Republicans, when Joe Biden was sitting at like 54-45, 55-45. They are packing this. They're skewing the quotas and they're skewing the weights. There's no other explanation. And they can kiss my rosy red Italian if they don't like me saying it. Tough. All right, I do have to take a break. I got to take a break. I hate taking breaks, but it is what it is, right? It's got to pay the bills. We all got to do it. It's just nonsense. It's total nonsense. It's so transparent. It's so obvious to those of us who pulled this election correctly. Right track, wrong track. Could go positive for the first time in 2 decades by most pollsters' measures. If not for these bad actors who keep polluting your aggregates. And there's, that's on them. That's on them. Just because you have a big media name and they get USAID money does not mean that they shouldn't have penalties for repeatedly missing elections. A lot of other good pollsters are withheld from them, not just us from certain aggregates, but a lot of other pollsters, which, by the way, is about to end. A lot of other good pollsters, though, are withheld. They did a much better job. It is what it is. And it's a shame because it means we won't be able to trust the trends. Bad data in, bad data out. But they're doing this on purpose. They are. I wish I could say otherwise. Once upon a time, I did. My entire career, I did. Some of them are just making mistakes. It's a boys' club. Live caller polling is like socially acceptable and professionally acceptable. Other things aren't. Give them time. Well, I gave them plenty of time. Many of them even changed part of their methodologies. The Maris poll started to use online paneling, started to use text to online and peer-to-peer texting. Look at how crappy they did. Maris was awful. Again. At some point, the Economist, by the way, used another one. Reuters, Ipsos, who got rewarded for their bad polling by kicking Nate Cohn to the curb, him and Sienna to the curb, and giving him, at least he gets to sit in a passenger seat. Sienna's just gone. But like ABC kicked Gary Langer to the curb and replaced him with Ipsos, who was used by Reuters. Now they got the contract at the New York Times too. So now you're going to have two major media outlets, the New York Times and Reuters, both publishing shit. Garbage. Trash. Worthless garbage. Meant to allow them to have their stupid little panels and talk in a circle jerk and in a bubble. That's it. All right. Let's take a break. Now that we got Fauci's got a pardon, RFK got confirmed though, right? So he's going to unearth, most of us already knew about the pandemic, right? But this effort, the tens and millions of us never feeling the same way again, either from the virus or the mRNA shots, we all know there's somebody who has a personal story, right? Well, Pfizer's been forced to release details in the past that show the side effects with the COVID-19 shots. And sadly, some of these include things like myocarditis, blood clots, and of course, other debilitating issues. But a less severe but also common is concern is long COVID syndrome. It's a condition that leaves people feeling brain fog, chronic fatigue, shortness of breath, lingering for months, in some cases years. The wellness company's trying to make it easy for you with their long COVID syndrome support. You get 4 doctor-formulated nutraceuticals with 5 to 8 plants and minerals in each bottle, designed to address the root cause. Ultimate Spike Detox, Mind Lift, right? Elevated energy, healthy heart. Dr. Peter McCullough recommends a durable recovery through holistic health. Explore targeted solutions like long COVID syndrome support. And right now you can save $40. It's up to $40 on the bundle and get an additional $23 off plus free shipping. Head to twc.health/TPP. Use that promo code TPP. All right. And that'll get you the discount. All right. Take action today for a healthier tomorrow. This is the best deal. This is the best deal they've been offering yet, if I remember correctly. If memory serves me. If memory serves, God, it's already 10-1, man. For those of you who are not on locals, I have been dealing with some stuff. All right. I'm not going down on camera. That's not, you could see that. Oh, they'd love that, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they? Be like, of course, they go, oh, so tragic, so horrible. Son of a bitch. Good for that. Apparently, most people think I'm a prick. Here I am. I think I'm a nice guy. I just don't play the game anymore. I'm just done. I haven't played the game ever. But I mean, I don't play the game. Like, I don't allow the game to be this behind closed doors thing anymore. I just don't. All right, couple announcements. Monday, I'll be on John Solomon. Don't miss it. That's going to be a biggie. Yeah, looking forward to it. Because, you know, all of this stuff that we talk in election year after election year, they just have no shame. They're totally shameless. No apology. No, oh, we screwed up again. Marist, for instance. If you guys remember, maybe you don't, maybe you're new, you weren't watching before the election, you're a new viewer. Marist was confronted with multiple people. Robbie, you're out there. You're probably one of them if you're listening right now. Multiple people who showed them and reported to them that they did not properly block survey forwarding. So they moved on to something new, a new data collection mode, peer-to-peer, text online, modes, plural. And that's great. Or even online paneling, because that's actually technically a different, not technically, it is a different mode of collection overall, using an online marketplace. And good for them. But then come out and say, we have never done these modes before and we made some mistakes. They knew damn well that the Sun Belt round and the Rust Belt round were tainted by improper restriction of survey forwarding. Why does that even matter? And this is what happens when you smear people who pioneered those data collection modes, like they did me and their friends did, right? They smeared me. They smeared Robert Cahaley. We were pioneers on these things because they didn't know what they were doing. So instead of listening to people who knew better and actually were experts, unlike them, instead of listening to the pioneers and the people who have been doing it for years, who went before them and made all of these mistakes, or at least thought ahead of time to avoid making these mistakes. Instead of doing that, in their hubris, these know-it-all academics, these professional, high-quality pollsters, went out there and tried to do something they've never done before, didn't know how to do, and guess what? They f***ed it up. Improper blocking of survey forwarding is a game-ending disaster mistake for a pollster. That is a legitimate reason to spike a poll unless you have a way to separate the responses. And in fact, unfortunately, their URL did not have a parameter in the URL to track unique IDs. So let's say I send it to you, the viewer out there. Yes, you who are listening right now. You, not everybody else, you. Let's say I send you this thing and you get it and you get a text and you're looking at your phone and bing, oh, what's this? Hi, viewer. It's Rich from Big Data Poll. We are conducting the nation's first ever publicly funded survey because that's one of our prompts. And I'm not going to give away it all. It'll only take a couple of minutes. You can either respond and our agent will interview you. You can over text if you'd like, or you can click on the link and just do it in your own time. You can even say, what? Never mind, I don't want to give away some stuff. Laura's about to barge in going, shut up! That's how we increase our response rates. That's how we get a higher response rate than everybody, or some of it. But in any event, let's say I do that. And then you take the survey and you're a big Trump supporter, okay? Or a big Harris supporter, whatever it may be. You take the survey and then you say, I want to send this to my girlfriends or my boyfriend or whoever. I want to send it to my circle of friends who I know also share the same views that I share. So you do. Well, guess what? Now you're messing with randomization and representation and everything else. And if I did not put a parameter on there linking you, the viewer, to that invite or to that interview through peer-to-peer, then I have no way to separate you from the people that they are trying to use to skew the result. Because, of course, her or his or yours, your social circle is almost assuredly not representative of the electorate as a whole. So you have tainted my survey. Marist did not block survey forwarding. And they didn't, if they tried, they didn't do it correctly. On multiple links throughout the election cycle, I was able to take it from somebody, fill it out myself, send it to Laura. She filled it out. She sent it to an employee. He filled it out. Just to make sure. The survey was completely tainted. And yet, they somehow came up with pro-Harris results. Shocker. Shocker. All right, we'll get to your questions in a hot minute. Let's do this last one so we can, okay? All right, look, folks, if you've ever thought about ways to protect your wealth, or maybe you just want to diversify your portfolio, the folks at Freedom Gold are definitely the people to call. All right, what I love about Freedom Gold is straight up that they're not a boiler room. Simple as that. No hard sell, all right? Most of these places have large buy-ins, and for deals, they reduce that buy-in, right? Which is great and very generous. But they're usually, to start, around 50 bones, 50 grand, right? Maybe 20, maybe 10. Even Freedom Gold without anything is 5, but not for you guys. It's just $500. That's it. Right. So if you have like a new IRA, gold or silver IRA you want to open, you're going to get a $500 credit. It's an insane deal. And no matter what deal you take advantage of, you're going to get free shipping and insurance on every order. And the kicker is, as some of you know, because you won, right, you all go into what is essentially a monthly raffle. All right. And it was only supposed to be one, but they've been doing 2 a month. 2 people who win free silver. Come on. What? That's super generous. Plus, they're good people. Bottom line. All right. So go on over to freedomgoldusa.com/rich. Check out what deal you may qualify for. There's a bunch of them up there, right? 888-279-3592 is the number. It is our number directly, but it is still always fun and a kick when you say the People's Pundit sent me. 888-279-3592. 888-279-3592. Or go to freedomgoldusa.com/rich. And he makes a great point every time we talk, which is that at the rate institutions are buying physical, not only gold and silver, but platinum, right? Which they'll talk to you too if you're interested in these different things, right? There's almost a certainty that at some point they're going to say, you can't buy this anymore. Here's a note. Because all these central banks specifically are buying it all up. Well, why? They did this in the past. We've seen them do this before. They waged their war on cash. They don't want you to have any cash. They'll do the same thing to gold and silver and palladium and platinum. And we'll say, mark my words. Or at least they'll try. Right? Maybe not with Trump as president, but take that time. It's 4 years is nothing. Take that time to prepare for it. All right. Let's get to your comments, questions. Yeah, I mean, I think this is like something a lot of people say, and I hear a lot, Stephen, from voters when we're polling. Look at this. Finally, real change. Not that Obama slick talk BS pseudo crap. I think this sentiment, Stephen, is why so many people who voted for Barack Obama are now Trump supporters. There is no way Donald Trump could win Ohio by 13 greater points. Ohio, Iowa, right? There's no way he could do that. There's no way he could win Pennsylvania kind of comfortably. And Michigan, not as comfortable, but still, I mean, you could see it was a wrap. Monroe, Macomb, even parts of Oakland went away from Harris. Detroit. I mean, the heart of Detroit. Because I think it's that sentiment right there. And so many people actually who voted for Barack Obama in 2008 kind of fell off the map and disappeared after they realized it was like, and how have I said it in the past? No hope. He used to say hope and change, right? And then it became real clear real fast that there was never any hope for any real change, right? And he was a ball player and he was a status quo guy. And there was no real change. There was nothing. The only thing they implemented that was a major reform to the system was Obamacare, and it hurt millions and millions of people. And it isn't what he promised. That's not what he was running on. And someone like me, for instance, I'm dealing with it right now. I'm in a catch-22. My entire family is, because I'm a veteran, and of course, I was hurt, so I have a certain disability rating where they don't want me to buy private insurance. They want me to go to the VA. And the VA sucked until Donald Trump. But even after he left again, that's how bureaucracy works. It goes back to being tone from the top. Nobody cares, right? I had it made, though. Where I was in Florida, I did have it made, especially under Trump. That was primo healthcare, and that's it. But once you get out of the concentration of veterans, it's even with community care, it's that, which was a reform Trump did. It's very difficult because now we have to leave it back up to the bureaucrats who Trump needs to make them afraid they're going to be fired again. I don't know what, the VA has gone downhill under Biden very badly. For those who are not in a concentrated area, like if you live across from the Malcolm Randall VA hospital, you're good, right? But the rest of us aren't. But I'm in this catch-22 because of Obamacare. I want to buy my own insurance, and I want to buy my family insurance, and I want it the same thing you can offer employees through your business, but I can't. It's ridiculous. So instead of being able to save money like that, you have to pay top dollar, because I make too much, of course. I have to pay top dollar to have other insurance that doesn't include a family plan or something like that where you could save. And it's stupid. So like that's the change. That's an example of a change Barack Obama brought. And of course, the real change, Stephen, that he brought was a totally corrupted bureaucracy. One that was so flagrant in it too, right? I mean, isn't that what Obama really did? All of the out of control overreaches that started under Bush, he stamped it with a seal. Made it even worse. Lois Lerner, all of that. Yeah, this is funny, crew. I put it up. I put a clip of it up. JD Vance went into Munich and called them a bunch of tyrant to their face and that they won't fly anymore. And it was great. Naturally, the commie German defense minister called it unacceptable. Yep. That's so, I mean, again, I'm going to keep that up there as I'm reading something from locals, but totally perfect example. And you'll see our ruling class take the chancellor's side. Brought to you by the people who brought you Hitler. They are so, and it's important, that's important, to understand the German identity and mind in the modern Western world. The Hitler influence is so important. They are willing to destroy their own nation with globalism because the ruling class is ashamed of Hitler. They're actually ashamed of the German people. That's the truth. They're ashamed of the German people that they could ever support someone like Hitler, even though they did themselves. Don't tell me your grandpappy didn't turn his factory into a tank machine warehouse. Of course he did. Very few of you said anything. Even when the bodies started to smell. Not ever going to be lectured by a German. Ever. You're only allowed, you only exist in the state you exist in today because of our good graces. You're only a social welfare state today because we paid for it. And because when you're not allowed to militarize because you started 2 world wars, I guess your budget has a little extra. Glad JD did that. Absolutely. All right. I had a real good stuff here from D Wong, which I think is like really serious. Really serious. If the JFK... Oh, nope, that's the wrong one. Sorry about that, guys. Any indication, and this is from locals, D Wong on locals, any indication of whether Democrats are going to change their tactic, try to be less divisive in their action and rhetoric going forward? Some of us who live in deep blue districts have lost 90% of our friends and acquaintances, and even our marriages have suffered. We are looking for normality, the good old days of the 90s to return. It's so sad to answer this question because unfortunately the answer is no. I'm not saying there aren't any Democrats who want that. There are, right? There are the Dans. There are the Marks. And of course, I'm talking about Dan from 2A. Excuse me. There are. And there are the Rui Teixeiras. And there are the Mark Penns and the Matt Iglesias. They won't listen. They lost. There was a small period of time where these people thought, this like remaining wing of the Democratic Party thought that they actually may have a shot. And they lost, sadly. The fanatics are still in charge. And I'm sorry they cost you family and friends. I know it. I know it well. I'm not going to get into it, which side of the family I'm talking about here or what, but I most certainly lost. Well, if I say one, it's gonna highlight them. I lost close family members. They know what I do. They hate me for it. They thought I was full of shit with my polling and just believed like, oh, he's just making it up for Trump. Like, what? You knew me when I was in fucking diapers. I get it, man. I really do. But they polluted her mind. They twisted her up. They cracked her brain. Sad. It's really sad. This nation suffers from mass mental illness, and their whole playbook is to take advantage of mentally ill people. It's sad, but it's true. Angry or mentally ill. You know? They want to harness that anger, and they want to harness that illness, and they want to turn it into political power. And it hurt a lot of us. I know people who don't even meet for Christmas anymore. It's sad. Now, that is not the case with most. Most of even my own friends and family, whether they agree with me or disagree with me, usually are very proud, of what I'm doing. They know who I am. They know I'm, an honest broker, but I get you. I feel your pain, man. I do. And I wish there was another answer, but there's not. Because the truth is, you'll have some tell you, yes, there are. Yes, it is. Yes, there are. We're here. But you're losing. You've lost. So I don't know how much longer you think your hands are clean. I mean, I hate to go that far, but it's true. Like, so the next person to get shot because of these nutcases, like, how long before you decide that you have blood on your hands by simply even associating with that? Owen! By the way, Owen, did you get my message, by the way? I did send you a private. I was watching some guy, some modern contractor. He's a quarry, stone quarry and transportation. Or appropriate, no. Procurement and transportation. And limestone and granite. What it takes for this guy to move a massive stone, which is like half the size of those suckers. Ridiculous. I'll tell you more about it. Yeah. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear them from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal the land. 2 Chronicles 7:14. That is so appropriate for after Wong's statement. Owen, thank you for that. APIS Radio, Arcadio, right? Cadlo? Oh, API's Cadlo. Okay. Episcolo. How do you want? I wonder how it's pronounced. It made me emotional that Trump pardoned Blago and then trusted to send him to be his man in Serbia. The man has a huge heart and gives people second chances. He does. I can't tell you everything, but I can just tell you Donald Trump is most certainly a man who believes in second chances and will never hold, as long as you have obviously demonstrated that you are, in fact, well, in the case of Blago, I feel like he was guilty of only being a Democratic politician with inspiration and ambition, right? Aspirations and ambitions. That's all he was guilty of. And then getting in Obama's way. Like, Blago was the original victim of Obama's weaponization of the Justice Department and justice system. Like, he is the original victim of it. All right. He knew too much. He refused to do certain favors, and they Chicago'd him. But I don't think he was really doing anything wrong. That's perfect. What Blago was doing, whether you think it's right or wrong, is perfectly no. And by the way, a lot of the stuff that you heard on those tapes is taken grossly out of context. It is. Nothing he said is something you wouldn't expect most politicians to say, especially Democratic politicians in blue machine Tammany like states, like Illinois. All right. But yes, even people who have done something wrong, you recognize it, right? That's why he was Second Chance Act, which, by the way, stupid Republicans who ran against him in a primary thought that they were going to attack him with, as if it wasn't grossly popular. They called it the rape, the breakout or jailbreak bill or something. How stupid. The numbers don't at all justify that kind of an attack. The recidivism rate is way lower for people who are released on the Second Chance Act. Give me a break. Anyway, yeah, he is. And even if you've done something wrong in the past, and he believes you deserve another chance. He does. Like, that doesn't define you. Guys, Wyatt Earp was a criminal. The greatest lawman in the history of Western America was a criminal. He started out as a drunken horse thief who was nearly hung in the state of Missouri because he was such a drunken thief. If it wasn't for his daddy, he would not have gotten out of jail. He would have been hung. But he did, and he made his way out west and made a new life and became a lawman. Now he's the lawman everybody knows. The shootout at the OK Corral. Everybody knows Wyatt Earp. They don't know him for being a criminal. That's America right there. That's America. Sure as hell, I'm not perfect. I made a huge mistake in my life. This is America. That's what you're supposed to be. Hell, people who migrated here from Europe, many of them were looking for a second chance, obviously. It's the whole American dream. So Trump is just embodying the American dream, or he wants you to embody it, basically. It's a very endearing characteristic of the president. He's a cheerleader for you. He wants you to do well. He'll flatter you, and I know what he's doing when he does that. It's so obvious, but I'll take it. All right? I'll take it because I know he is sincere in the other things he says. And he wants you to succeed. He really does. And that's something that I don't know. I forget about Democrats. I don't know. Republicans, can you show me another example of one of your guys really being like that? I don't think Mitt Romney gave two rats' ass if you or I succeeded or failed. I really don't. George Bush, your mother. Barack Obama, 100% in it for him. By the way, Obama, you going to go home to your wife or are you going to keep banging Jennifer Aniston? At least get a divorce. Fucking sinner. And look, it's not it's not for me to tell, but like, don't hold yourself up as something you're not. Can you kiss and tell? I want to know about this skank trying to honeypot you at the Mayflower. Oh, yes, from the Clinton campaign. Was it obvious? At first, no, because I knew who she was. I knew my wife hates her, has always hated her. In fact, always hated her because she felt like she was trying to be her when we were young. All right. She was always feeling like she was like dressing like her. And she was. It was weird. It was weird. They were both the same ethnicity, and she would like try to mimic Laura's mannerisms. It was odd. All right. So I never cared about it. I think I hear Laura. I don't know if Laura can, because I know she is getting ready for her trip, and sending me your stuff, but getting ready for a trip. And I'm sure she's dying to pop in. Can I blow the person up? Let me ask Robert if I can, if I'm in any kind of jeopardy by telling that story and identifying the person, because I don't care. I'll identify her. Yeah, I mean, basically, I thought it was just, oh my God, it's been so long. How have you been? This and that. And I didn't know what she did, but she knew what I did. And then I'm like dawning, and then little by little, because I'm no fool, I was raised on the street. I am not a silver spoon, white collar guy, or at least I wasn't born that way. And neither was she, so I don't know how she thought she was going to play me like that. But I knew she had a crush. She always kind of had a crush. She always flirted, at least. And I flirted back at times when I was younger. I'm not going to BS here. She's a pretty girl. And not as pretty as Laura. Sorry. True story. But it's just one thing, and the conversation tipped me off. And then after it was clear that I thought I was making it obvious that after I realized what she did, I was making it obvious that I was like onto it, and I didn't want to talk about it. Like, I wasn't comfortable talking about my work with her because she was too close. Once that became clear, then the advances were there anyway, because she was a naturally flirty person. So I didn't really think about it at first like that, because she was always very flirty. And then she got real flirty. So let me ask Robert, and I don't mind telling you it, but yeah, that's what happened. And she worked for freaking Clinton. So not that I ever got it out of her, but the obvious to me that she was going to try to get somewhere and then get something on me and then try to use it to pervert my impartiality. Hey, do me a favor, turn that tracking pole upside down. Otherwise, I'm going to tell your wife. Like, that clearly I thought was the game. And I'm not thought. That was the game. Give me a break. That's how it goes. And think about it. A lot of these ugly ass congressmen, especially freshmen, they go there. That happens to them. They're not used to being given attention by pretty women, by honeypots. And look at what happened at Swalwell, right? And they're stupid and they fall for it. They're dumb. And then that's why you're wondering, how the hell did they cast that vote? Like, I really just wish people would stop pretending it doesn't. This is not how the world operates. It is. And that's what happens. All right. I know I got to get through it because I got to go to the bus stop. All right. Dan. So, yeah, I will definitely check with Robert on that because that's because I don't even mind popping that out there. Not that I'm trying to hurt the girl or anything, because she had a rough life, and frankly, I was surprised she ended up where she ended up, and kind of like proud of her. Like, good for you, even though it's not, Dan, if the JFK files confirm the government lied and murdered its own president, what kind of public reaction do you expect? I fear voters will just treat it as an academic historical topic rather than seeing the relevance today. I do too. I do too, because here's the thing, Dan, don't you think that Americans, and we've polled it, don't you think Americans already think that the CIA had a hand, especially the CIA, but the government had a hand in the killing and murdering of our own president? I think most Americans already believe that. And it's like what I was talking about with Frank, and quite frankly, with the entire UFO, UAP issue. Do we really need the government to tell us what is and what isn't real? I feel like that's the case. Now, it would be nice to have confirmation. So those, what's the word I'm looking for? So those suspicions that Americans have, right? They're naturally skeptical, and it will deepen, and it should, because where's my book? I don't have it with me. Bernard Bailyn, The Ideological Origins of the American Revolution. You read it with us in book club, buddy. You know what I'm talking about. Like, you constantly have to be recognizing that there is a forever tug of war between liberty and tyranny. And if you are not forever skeptical, tyranny will win. You have to constantly be vigilant. So a confirmation would be nice, but I don't expect, I do expect like a short-term thing. I just don't know. I think, let me put it this way. If you can use that confirmation to deepen the skepticism toward government and the administrative state and to remind people what the nature of government is, I think it's a win. Because I don't care the most liberal Democrat in the world. The bottom line is, you cannot argue to me that the nature of government is good, because guess what? You're just wrong. Like, nobody really thinks that. You are operating under assumption, like your entire ideology operates under a false assumption. It's just true. All right. And you're welcome to come and debate me on it if you're somebody, Democrat, who was listening right now, and you're more than welcome to come on and send the numbers, and we can have a whole show and discuss it and debate it. But you are wrong. What do I suggest for Carrie to do next? What she's doing. In fact, I'm going to see Carrie next Friday at the Lincoln Reagan dinner. We're both giving speeches, and we're going to, what should she do in the future? I expect we'll hear from her on that. I think she's got a role to play. I really do. I don't think it necessarily has to be an elected office, but I do think she has a role to play. But also, I think she's going to have the biggest "I told you so" going very soon. We should predicate all aid to Europe on free speech guarantees. Why not? Censorship, no more U.S. money, period. This should not be controversial, Rich. Whoa. Amen. And I really liked how RFK put it about the USAID. His uncle started that program, yet it's been captured by the deep state and now perverted and used for something that is not what its intended purpose is. Man, I can't stop getting these phone calls, these garbage phone calls. They used to blow Laura up constantly, and now I'm getting blown up constantly. Just garbage telemarketing. We might have to change our numbers, Laura. Will there be additional states added to the list of swing states in 2028? Yes. I think there will be. Depends on the candidates, of course. Depends on the success or failure of the Trump administration, which so far, I think if you're MAGA, you have to say it's a success so far. But yeah, I do. I think New Jersey, if we keep this up, is going to continue to get redder. And I think you'll see some states being taken off the list as battleground states. And this is all predicated, speaking of the word predicated, on the idea that the Trump administration is a success, a policy success, right? Or not even, but yeah, is a success. And Democrats keep going nuts, which I just don't see an end to. All right, it's 3:21. I have to go get my kid, but don't forget the links to all our guys, all our sponsors are down below. The Public Polling Project as well is down below. Contribute if you can, share it far and wide. You know the deal. Monday, John Solomon, and Sunday, book club. All right, so don't forget. What else here? Good questions, good comments, right? I didn't miss one that was added later to locals, right? No. Okay, awesome. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff, everybody. Really great questions and great comments and great observations. And have a safe weekend, of course. Girls are going away for competition. Wish her luck. She won the last one last weekend again, which, she's the most modest winner I've ever seen. I'm so proud of her. I really am. But prayers to God never hurt. All right. And I think that's it. If there's anything else, I'll let you know. New Jersey, speaking of battleground states that may be added, if you did not see the voter analysis in New Jersey, go check it out. That is, of course, me scratching the surface of a project that it looks like we'll be working on. And I just wanted to give you guys like the baseline findings from that, which is one demographic. One, right? And there's a governor's election coming up soon, right? All right, so with that in mind, I'm going to kick rocks and go get my son. Nothing but love for you guys. I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like and share far and wide if you like the video. Deuces.